So this is the one that I think most of the students said that they really struggled with a lot. Just kind of commentary before we really talk about it. I think that this is probably a really great example of, you know, students working through the FRQs and having that strategy of maybe not doing the most difficult questions first. You know, I saw more than one teacher comment that said their students got to 2 and got stuck and spent a long time on it and then didn't finish. And I think there was definitely easier questions later in the exam. You know, like I felt like 3, 4, 5, 6 were not that hard, you know. But I feel like there's probably students out there that missed points on 3, 4, 5, 6 because they took maybe more time with 2 than they should have. But that's just a total, you know, interpretation of teachers posting what their students were kind of sharing with them. One of your students said they spent 60 minutes on 1 and 2. Yeah. You know, and I mean, I think ballpark, they should have spent around 50. So if they spent 60, I mean, yeah, I mean, that takes away 1. That takes away 1 of the 4 pointers, right? In theory, you know, of the 4-point question should be about 10 minutes. So yeah, I mean, they might have cost themselves, you know, 3, 4 points maybe. Hopefully not, you know, but it's possible. So the graph, somebody posted, I think this afternoon, their graph that they said they had ChatGPT make for them. And I had made this a little earlier in the afternoon. I looked at the post. I'm like, oh, that looks like my graph. This is how I made it. You know, I found myself making the graph kind of in parts as I was sort of reading through different parts of the questions, not trying to make it all simultaneously. And I don't know if that's what some of you all do with graphing too, or if you just kind of sit down and like I started labeling the axes and I was reading more of the other questions and I was filling in other parts of the graph. I think that was what was working for my brain on this one. Did anybody think of a different layout? I started doing the dark and then I'm like, oh, then I can see my error bars. I switched it.
This is the way I did mine.
Uh-huh.
Can you, what did you, I can't see it.
Hard to.
Okay. So what I did is I grouped the gene G and gene H.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's how I did mine. Here, I'll do it in color so that you can see it a little bit better. And I mean, I did this quickly, so I didn't even do the full graph.
Yeah, there was a discussion, and the person who did the ChatGPT, somebody in the thread posted the other way, where the gene was the independent variable on the x-axis and genotype. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is how I did mine.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The advantage to what you drew is the questions ultimately ask you to compare within gene H and within gene G, not so much across them.
Yeah, and that just was luck on my part. I just drew it in the way that made sense in my brain.
Yeah. I mean, graphically speaking, you're both correct.
Yeah.
I think they would both get credit. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they would too. Yeah.
Right. The only things I had to grade the question 2 last year, and the 2 things that will lose points is if they don't scale it right so that the error bars go off the grid.
Yeah.
And if they color in the bar so that you can't see the bottom error bar, you weren't allowed to give points.
So I talked to one of my students today. I don't have a section of AP Bio this year. I have 3 next year, but this year I don't. But one of my students in forensics was taking AP Bio, who's and she told me about her graph, and she's like, "Oh, I graphed it like this, and my error bars go off the top. I hope that's not a problem." I said, "Yeah, you lost a point there," but because I think she did it by tens, right? So 1 at 10 and 2 at 20 and 3 at 30, and then her error bar went over the top, and yeah. So I just I did like this, but yeah, I think Christy, the way that you did it, I think the way that I did it, I think they're both fine.
Yeah.
As far as the graphing goes.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to graph it your way as well, so that my
Mhm.
students can see that, okay, just because they didn't do it my way doesn't mean that it was wrong.